My name is Camille Maslow. I am the program coordinator of the Coimen program for JOGL. And I'm very pleased to welcome you all and here to come in this open JOGL Vaccination Awareness Escape Game.
I'm Lola. I'm a communication manager and I animate the community at JOGL.
So as we found that it was very important to just set the tone for this conversation, as we usually do during the open JOGL events. So just a quick reminder of some rules of the game before we talk about gamification. Just please, for everyone who is going to join this, oh wow, is it me who did that?
No, it's me.
Yeah, it's a safe space where everyone can listen and learn from each other, respect each other's opinion, do not be do not have discriminative speeches, and provide constructive feedbacks when you actually provide feedbacks. Just like three small rules that we should all apply. This is what's going to happen today. We're first going to just introduce ourselves, and then I think Toufic and Antoine will have the chance to present their project and maybe list some needs. Yeah, I would like to remind everyone that this video is recorded, this chat is recorded, so that we can actually put it on YouTube and that we can reach out to many other people and they can learn from this talk as well.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you forgot to put makeup maybe. If anyone has questions during the speech or when someone is talking, please write them down on the side. Do not interrupt, but you'll have a chance to ask all of your questions in the chat room or just like orally when it's like question and answer time. And I think Lola, you had prepared a little question, but maybe we can do that a little bit later. All right, Thomas, would you like to introduce JOGL in like a minute? No.
You freezed.
Yeah.
I
don't know if that's also.
I think there's a problem with the sound.
Yeah, it's saying my internet connection is unstable. Okay, I'll try. Oh, hi Nazia. So in a very few words, JOGL is trying to change the way we make science happen by putting in contact a large number of people that wants to contribute to the advancement of knowledge and innovation without the context of academia. So the goal is really to enlarge number of the diversity of contributors to enable projects that will have a hard time to be funded or to be developed within the academic framework to be advanced, and especially regarding the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, so it's really all about how do we help someone to find the right project that person could work on. How do we help a project find collaborators? How do we help all of them manage a community, be part of a community, share results, information, and then how do we also synchronize a community of contributors and projects and partners around a specific problematic? In that regard, we develop what we call programs, open research programs. And the first, I hope of many, is about vaccination. and it's called Co-Immune. And it is in that context that we gather tonight, and that we're going to hear about one of the projects that is participating in this program. So I guess, Camille, you can take the relay.
Sure, yeah. Hello to everyone who has joined us in the previous minute and a half. So Co-Immune is the first program that JOGL launched on the 14th of September. As Thomas said, like the main goal is to catalyze initiatives and collaboration around one public health priority, which is increasing vaccination coverage, and we aim to bring together a wide range of communities, whether they're data analysts, game designers, researchers, professionals, around two axes. The first one is access to vaccination, and the second one is vaccination hesitancy. So it doesn't aim to reinvent the wheel. We actually try to work as close as possible as to national, regional, and local stakeholders, and to build upon the needs they have identified to increase the number of contributors to improve population health. We're very pleased today to have special guests. So I would be very happy if we could do a little round table on maybe starting on my side with Raphaël Duboz, who is a researcher at the Institute for Research and Development, but maybe I can let you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the invitation. So I work for CIRAD, which is a research institute working on agronomy. So I'm working in the health domain, but animal health, not human health. But it's closely related because I work also on zoonosis. So, and I'm hosted here at IRD, the Institute of Research for Development here in Paris. And I'm for a few years now, I am particularly interested in participatory research and what we call participatory modeling. So the idea is to co-design games with all the stakeholders that are involved in a particular research questions, or they are facing a particular problem. For instance, I was working in Cambodia with farmers and researchers on Japanese encephalitis to design games to reach awareness of the importance of the disease, and to try to find with the farmers some solution to control the disease. And so I'm interested in complex system modeling and surveillance and control of disease and vaccination problem and all of these. So I'm happy to be here and learn a lot. I don't know.
Well, we might learn a lot from you, actually. I think I saw Catherine is connected. I'm not sure.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Catherine. Do you want to say a little word about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Catherine. I'm in Paris doing a PhD at Institut Pasteur. In general, my PhD is in infectious disease modeling and epidemiology, focused on trying to leverage new methods from data science to improve our understanding of how infectious disease spreads in humans. And among other things, one of my projects is looking at vaccine hesitancy on social media and trying to better understand the role that social media is playing in vaccine hesitancy and the resurgence of vaccine preventable disease. For example, one of my projects tries to map the spread of misinformation resources online to better understand the types of narratives that are being used, as well as how far those narratives are spreading.
Okay, thank you so much. Looking forward to exchange further and ask a lot of questions.
Come to the hackathon. She has to come to the hackathons.
We'll see. Yeah, that would be awesome. Maybe Marc and Thomas, do you want to say a word before we give the mic to other participants? And then maybe Toufic and Antoine, we can finish by you so that you can actually then continue with pitching the project and what it's all about.
I can quickly maybe say about me, because I will have to leave in 15-20 minutes. So I'm a co-founder of JOGL, and I'm interested in how people can collaborate at scales using quantitative data, but human collaboration. And so I'm also a research fellow at the CRI, where I have a team dedicated to understanding through network science and data science how people collaborate to solve complex problems, how teams work, and how large-scale collaboration work, and also collaborative learning, how people learn together, using network science and data science.
Okay, Thomas, would you like to? Everyone knows you, right? Oh, you have no microphone. All right, maybe I see
in 10 seconds, I'm Thomas Landrin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of JOGL. In the past, I've been very much involved also in community science, at first with the creation and direction of Raphaël, and also been involved heavily in biotechnology. That's my field of research originally. Also being an entrepreneur and with the creation of a company called PD, and now dedicating my time and energy and spirit to JOGL.
All right, great. Thank you, Thomas. Nasia and Ellie, would you like to say a word? Maybe where you're located right now, and present yourself briefly, if you want. Not an obligation.
So Nasia is saying that for some reason her microphone doesn't work. So she put her short background here. She said she's finishing her PhD in the German Aerospace Center, and she's interested in problems of climate dynamics and evolutions. And evolution, but in this context, she came just as prospective player of the game that is going to come out of this. She's an iWire player and also involved with Lectures Without a Border. I will leave that to Toufic now.
Hi, Nasia. All right. Okay. If Ellie, I don't know if Ellie wants to say something, but maybe if your microphone also have trouble, let us know. And if yes, then we can just continue by Toufic and Antoine, and then give them the mic to start talking about that project. All right, Toufic, we're listening to you.
Hello. We are Toufic and Antoine. We are both second-year master students of learning sciences in the CRI. And we are both interested in game-based learning, and we decided to join Commune on a project that leads to the creation of an escape game used as a tool to raise awareness of the contemporary challenges of vaccination. I have a little presentation. I'm gonna share my screen. Do you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So first, I would like just to briefly define an escape game. It's a team-based live action game where a group of people, usually between 4 and 8 members, go inside a room and have to complete some tasks, look for physical objects, and solve riddles and problems in order to reach a certain goal, which is usually escaping the room, breaking out of the room. During the first year of my master's, I could discover what I coin now as the double layer of escape games, where escape games can actually be used as a tool to teach players certain learning objectives by playing the game. So let's call this playing the game. And another layer is learning about a certain subject by designing an escape game around that subject. We're gonna coin this design. So what our project with Coimmune is trying to do is to actually make use of escape games in order to learn by playing and learn as well by designing. And in order to do so, I'm just gonna show you the framework that we're using. It's called the Escape Ad framework. So we've already worked on the participants, choosing the user type and the time and the difficulty of the game. And we would like to work on the learning objectives today around vaccination with subject experts and people that have experience in the field of vaccination. So the learning objectives, there are two types of learning objectives. Hopefully we would like to select some of these with the subject experts today. And then puzzles will be designed around this selection tomorrow during a game jam and the maker lab of the CRI, where participants will learn some practical learning objectives like game mechanics, learning mechanics, puzzle creation, hint systems, and time control. And before jumping to the selection of learning objectives, I'd like to give a small explanation about it. So as I already said, we're looking for subject experts to help us with the selection of learning objectives. So the two main types of learning objectives are declarative information, which are just as an example, like history of vaccination and how it already had challenges since the beginning. Or it could be just the number of vaccines that should be taken by a child between since birth and till 5 or the year of 6 years, the age of 6 years. And another type of learning objectives is a behavioral change and attitudinal nurturing of the players, where, for example, a learning objective can be the increased number of measles cases in France from 2016 to 2018, which would actually be learning objectives that open the eyes of the players towards the importance of vaccination and the risks of avoiding it. And we're going to be following the learning mechanics, game mechanics framework in order to embed the learning objectives into the game mechanics of the game. Here you can just have a look at what kind of game mechanics we can use in order to integrate the chosen learning objectives in the game. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So maybe, Raphaël, do you want to like react briefly on what you've seen? Is there comments?
Yeah, I was wondering why you choose a escape game, but maybe it's like a preference, and why this type of game, and why not a role player's game, or just a more simpler or common game?
Well, we thought of using escape games given the immersive effect that they have, especially that they are live action games. And concerning the role playing, we can actually assign roles to the players and the theme and the narrative of the game, which can actually boost their motivation and suspension of disbelief while they're playing the game.
Okay.
Given its physical aspects and the physical nature of the game, we thought it would be better used as an awareness tool for these learning objectives that we are seeking.
Okay.
So do you like, from your experience, when it's about raising awareness, do you have other examples of games that you've implemented or techniques that are efficient to raise awareness on the subject?
Well, yeah, concerning escape games, I've conducted a study that measured the extent to which an escape game can teach a new subject to players that have no pre-acquired knowledge about this subject. Because during my my literature review, what I could determine is that most of escape games in research were used in parallel to a course as an evaluative tool, like as an exam or as a practical tool in parallel to a course where the knowledge and the information is already acquired by the players. So I thought of designing an escape game to see its effect on the players when they have no pre-acquired knowledge, when it's a totally new subject to them. And it showed a possibility of positive results to be used as a teaching and learning tool.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing is, it seems that your objective is to change the behavior of the gamer and the awareness regarding vaccination. And to me, maybe it's a mistake, but it's really related with values and beliefs. And when you want player change their values and beliefs, it's very hard to reach this objective. Mm-hmm. Regarding the games we have designed it, you can provide information, as you said before, and using different techniques. An escape game can be one of them. You can make the gamers discover by themselves some mechanics. If you want them to understand how the disease spread in a population, it's something that is easy to do. So change the value of somebody or the beliefs you can have on one particular question. It's not so easy.
It's not as simple as it sounds. I agree.
It's interesting. It's challenging. Very challenging.
Do you have any example to give us of? I don't know. Have you ever succeeded in changing someone's behavior through game or raising awareness?
Not me personally, because I haven't even tried to do that. But I have some example in mind regarding water management in Southeast Asia, for instance, where some games have been done in Bhutan, for instance, and there were two populations in conflict regarding water usage, and because of a long history between the two groups, let's say, and after some participatory modeling and gaming sessions, they finally reached an agreement to share the water and find kind of laws. They designed some laws to access the water and use it, etc. So they change the way they perceive the other.
Yeah, it's like empathy, building
empathy and understanding the needs.
Yeah.
And the rights of the other group. But it has been a long process, like several, you need many sessions, game sessions. It cannot be done in just one session. And the players, they participate to the design of the game also, to really understand the rules deeply. Yeah. It's not a game that you give them like this and they play. So they have designed the game also.
So Toufic, what do you think of Toufic and Antoine? What do you think of these remarks? Would you reconsider changing the objectives or maybe adapting the format to your current objectives? What do you think about it?
I can say that yeah, it's true. Like that's a big change, but it's maybe better to focus on something big and reach easier steps first than just staying on the first steps.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember well, one of like the second part of what you wanted to do is actually to make people design the second puzzle so they can make it test to other groups of people without in any way contribute to what you were referring to as a kind of them being involved in the design and then maybe changing either their knowledge or their perception of the. Could that work? Like what they?
I don't, with escape game, I don't think you can design and play because you have things to discover to escape the room. So I'm not sure it's possible.
It's not this
design and to play.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just have to clear something out. It's not the same population that is going to design and play the game.
Yeah.
So during the game jam, during the workshop of creation of the escape game, these will be people different than the people that are gonna end up playing it.
Okay.
So talking about vaccination hesitancies, the beliefs or the values that you mentioned before, what we're trying to tackle are the people that don't have a specific opinion as with or against vaccination. There are hesitant people that don't know why they are hesitating. So whether they take part in playing the game after it's designed or they take part in creating puzzles around the learning objectives, they would learn about the vaccination, and then maybe that would have an impact on their beliefs or what they know or what they don't know now. And it could be beneficial as well for those who are already for vaccination, but they don't know why. They're maybe just only for vaccination. It's a belief to them. And when they take part in creating such a game or play it after it's designed, they would actually know why they are for vaccination, and they could learn some information that they can use for themselves and for other people to let them know why we are for vaccination and not against it, why it's important, what are the risks of avoiding it. And
so were you talking about learning objectives? Maybe Catherine, would you like to react on this part and maybe provide your guidance to Toufic and Antoine?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a cool idea to try to create a game to raise awareness of vaccine hesitancy. But I agree that I am tenuous to believe that a game is going to change someone's behavior or beliefs per se. Also, I think a broader problem perhaps with a game like this, given that vaccine hesitancy is a relatively controversial belief system to have, I would imagine that most of the people playing your game are probably people who do support vaccination and do generally say, oh, I agree in science, I agree that vaccination is a good thing. And so part of my question to you is whether you can develop these learning objectives that would be useful both for people who are vaccine hesitant as well as for people who are not vaccine hesitant, because I imagine the majority of the people playing this game are going to be people who are not vaccine hesitant. Also, I would say it's very unusual actually to have people who identify themselves as vaccine hesitant, but quote unquote do not have a reason for it. Most people, because it pushes against a predominant belief, especially people who are in science, who are going to be around the culture of the Cree, to be vaccine hesitant is controversial, and people usually have very strong reasons why they hold that belief. So I don't think you're going to get many people who are vaccine hesitant, but don't already have a deeply ingrained belief system supporting that.
Yeah, just I entirely agree with you, and I think there's a lot of research showing that vaccine hesitancy is not that, like, you cannot state that you're vaccine hesitant and you can be vaccine hesitant at certain time of your life. This is something changing, and you can be you can strongly believe and agree with science on one vaccine and have question on other vaccines. So yeah, maybe Toufic, have you considered maybe asking people about their knowledge, or make them ask themselves questions like what do I trust, what do I not I don't know.
Well,
Catherine, you can take this opportunity like to maybe pose many questions, but that would be of interest to develop in these games.
well, I would like just to react on what's been said concerning the learning objectives and the difficulty of changing someone's belief or opinion towards vaccination. So what I'd understand is that it would be better for us to focus on declarative and factual learning objectives like history and number of cases and just everything related to statistics of people's opinion on vaccination and some facts about the numbers of different cases that would be maybe like only I'd say declarative information, no behavioral change information, and then the target audience maybe would be better to be adults, whether they are hesitant or not. The game's objective would be just to teach them facts and information about vaccination. Is that what you think would be better as a selection of learning objectives?
Well, so I mean, I guess for me to clarify, and this is an opinion, so perhaps yours is different, but to me, the information that will be useful to someone who is not vaccine hesitant and the information that will be useful to someone who is vaccine hesitant are different sets of information. So if I'm talking about someone who does believe in vaccination, but maybe just wants to learn more about vaccine preventable disease and whatnot like that, I would tell them one story. But if someone comes in and they say, oh, I'm vaccine hesitant because I think vaccines are unsafe, I would say, okay, well, so a lot of that controversy is attached, for example, to thimerosal, which people think contains mercury, but it actually doesn't for this, this, and this reason. Or if they say, I don't think it's the government's right to impose vaccination on the public, I could say, all right, well, we can talk about the concept of public good and this and that. But these are conversations that I probably wouldn't have with a vaccine confident person. So to me, depending on the specific target audience that you want, it would change the content of the game. Maybe what you want, because I do think, like I stand by my statement, I think you will mostly get people who are vaccine confident come to play the game. So maybe the purpose of the game could be, I want to help vaccine confident people have better tools to understand why vaccine hesitancy exists, and perhaps give them information that they can bring into debates with vaccine hesitant people to try to raise awareness of the actual safety of vaccines and the importance that they play in public health in general. But so I think that you need like a more specific A, target audience, and B, like outcome of the learning. Like, what do I want people to walk away from this game able to do?
If I may say something, just as I would say I'm not someone who was educated to get vaccinated, but I was never against vaccination. So I'm kind of in that position where I don't really know what to do. I think a lot of people are like that, like they are influenced by people that are vaccine hesitant and really are against vaccination, but also they're like not really sure why, or they don't really know why, and they're actually interested in knowing, like, actually, should I vaccinate myself or not? You know, it's more like I want information. And I think that's also an interesting type of people to think about, because I'm like that. So I'm not per se against vaccination, and I'm not pro-vaccination. I just don't know where I'm at. And I would like, I mean, right now I know, but before this, I didn't know. So for me, that's an interesting type of people who want to know, who have questions inside themselves and would be ready to play this game, but doesn't mean that they're pro-vaccination. It just means they don't know and they want a way to know better, right? So that's, yeah.
Yeah. To continue on on what Lola is saying, from the many practitioners that we've met since the beginning of the program, I think what comes out the most of their patient is actually we do have questions, and people have questions, and I think hesitancy is is a lot about answering questions. So yeah, that was just a comment. I maybe I'll leave you to answer that. Toufic, do you want to react to?
I would just actually, the user type and the learning objectives were part of why I'm here today, and I really appreciate the advice that that is being provided. But I would like to ask you all, like, what do you think would be better to set as a target audience? People who are hesitant or people that are already for vaccination? Which of the two types of users would be easier to set learning objectives for?
I mean, if you select a target audience only if you have a way to control the people you're going to be interacting with, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure the choice is between, because you have like a selection by like a selection mode, which is like you selecting the people who are playing, but also, as Catherine said, the type of people who are going to come. So I'm not sure that your target audience should be between hesitant person or non-hesitant, because I don't see how you would ask them and then decide whether they can play or not.
I agree. I agree. I think you should actually maybe not even mention that this is going to be about vaccination itself. Like you somehow like you invite people to play a game, right? And then they're going to learn something, and this is going to be about vaccination. So this way you avoid creating a filter beforehand, and you know, it's like when you go to an escape game, you never know what is going to be the challenge. Mm-hmm. So
kind of no.
So you usually know that's the theme. You usually know the theme.
Harry Potter or a vampire.
Yeah. So to find like a generic enough theme, or it seems to be like how do you make sure that you don't have any bias, you know, at the front door? That is not, you know, like you will have bias, like people that are more receptive to games than others, obviously. But then, like, you know, if they like games, like their choice or the ignorance regarding vaccinations shouldn't matter for them if they want to join or not the game.
Maybe Raphaël, can you tell us how do you do when you have when you're designing like interventions? To how do you do to select your target audience? Do you have some tips?
Yeah, regarding the project we had in Cambodia, we had a specific target. They were the farmers, because they are in close relationship with the pigs, and the Japanese encephalitis is transmitted by mosquitoes that they bite pigs and transmit to humans. So the audience was clear. Okay, so we have to communicate with farmers and to learn to let's say, teach them how the disease spread, for them to decide how they can control. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn from them how their practices, their daily practices, affect the spread of the disease, and then how they can change their daily practices to limit the spread of the disease with their own possibilities. And so vaccination was one of the solutions, mm-hmm. but not the only one. So we had proposed. So we had the target and audience, and it was very clear. And it is very important to have a clear target, mm-hmm. The audience. I mean. And it's not, for sure, it cannot be homogeneous. You have always, but they should share common characteristics that are important for you and the design of your game. And the objective of the game, it should be very precise, because as you know, the rules you will design, they will be designed in such a way you will be able to reach the objective. If the objective is too wide, important, then you cannot practically, concretely design rules to reach that objective. And you cannot measure if you reach the objective. So having a simple and clear objective is the best you can do. I agree, it's very good to have a big challenge to compete for,
but it's like more a goal and then you have specific objectives.
You can have like steps and different games and to reach this final objective. But do not try to reach the final objective in one game. I think it seems to me it will be difficult. And I agree with the previous remark regarding the selection of the target audience here. It seems to me the best thing is maybe try to address anybody. So if you say it's a game on, I don't know, contagion, that is just a game on contagion, the spread of something. And you have to limit it, for instance, and you have to find solution to limit the spread of something between all the participants. Maybe it's sufficient. And vaccination is one of the possibility, but not the only one. If you do not have any contact for muscles, for instance, with others, you will not be infected. So there are alternatives to vaccination, and it really depends on the disease. For some diseases, it's really important for your own safety. For some diseases, it's very important for the community to vaccinate. So it's a public health problem, but for you as an individual, maybe it's not really a public health problem. So maybe if you work on contagion, the spread of a disease between participants, and them to discover how to limit the spread. And if they can understand that it is first you are selfish, you think to yourself, I want to protect myself, but by protecting myself, I protect also the others, because the disease cannot be transmitted by me to the others. So I'm part of the community, and so it's very beneficial.
And if I also want to be protected, I need others to protect me.
Yes, and if I cannot afford the vaccine, if the other are vaccinated, I am protected by the others. So maybe this kind of mechanisms can be interesting to play.
Yeah, I think Nadia, I'm not sure I pronounce your name correctly, so please forgive me if I say it wrongly, has a good remark. Saying that maybe one potential target audience could be located geographically. By location here, we have outbreak of diseases which vaccinations exist. So I as a public health professional, I agree with that. It's a tremendous issue, like the localization. Maybe Toufic, Catherine, everyone wants to react to what Raphaël just said.
Yeah, I can react a bit. So I agree with Raphaël that the specific target and goal of the game should be very clear and very precise. And I think it's fine if you want to develop a game that's for the general population. You will always have some level of selection bias of who is going to come and play the game. But I think having it be as general as possible makes sense. One comment I would make in terms of your example of making the game about contagion and using the particular example of measles and how beyond vaccination there are other ways of avoiding infection with measles, I would just caution you against specific statements like that, as this is a specific argument that's frequently used by vaccine hesitant communities, that we don't need vaccines, which are dangerous and are a ploy from the government because we can just do other things to keep us safe. So I would be ironically hesitant to include like that specific narrative in a game if part of the purpose of the game is to decrease vaccine hesitancy.
But I think it's part of the discussion. If you want to discuss with people that are reluctant to vaccinate, you cannot just avoid this because it's true. I mean, you can avoid by some other change your behavior or what you do on your daily life. So it's, I mean, I'm not sure you can totally avoid this subject.
So it would be realizing.
I am not vaccinated.
Yeah, no, but it's a good remark because things work, like other stuff exists, like being isolated. This is what you do for an Ebola outbreak, right? You just put people in quarantine, and isolation work. But if people start discussing about it and then they start thinking, oh, but how do we implement that? Like, can I really be isolated from everyone? Oh no, wait, I live in a society. But I would think that this takes a way longer process to actually do this all like a change of view. But I don't know, maybe Toufic, would it be helpful if we all together, and we're very lucky that we have Catherine and Stefan. Raphaël, sorry, why do I call you Stefan? I don't know, you remind me of someone's name, Stefan. And Raphaël, maybe I would like to suggest, just a suggestion, to actually work on these objectives.
Yes, exactly. But as Raphaël already mentioned, and Catherine agreed, that we should maybe focus on if the user type will be a certain like hesitant or non-hesitant people, or maybe just the general population. That would be very critical when it comes to that choice. So
I'd like to bring a point also is I think it would be fantastic if you could focus on the key issues of hesitancy. Like, what about people that are not in a position to be vaccinated? How do you manage such a subpopulation? How do you also have a more globalized approach of vaccination where you are responsible of like a global state and you need to make general choices and so to really bring the questions that are heavily debated, you know, in the general public, and to confront the participants to those questions, bring them into the game, you know, and make them realize the impact of bad or good decisions regarding actually those points. Because at the end, it's really a question of education also. And I'm pretty sure you agree that when someone has decided that that person is anti-vaccine, it's very hard actually to change that person's opinion. However, most of the people are more in an ignorant state. They just don't know. They don't know enough actually, and they basically, because they don't know what to trust. They don't want to take any risk, so they have a risk limiting approach somehow. So if we can bring them, you know, into a situation where they have to make a choice, however, and learn the impact of, you know, such a choice, maybe that could definitely help them understand what is the reality and the complexity behind vaccination.
I was just typing something in the in the chat.
I like Nazia's comment. If we convince one of the Kardashians to tweet about vaccination, have the game ready for release, we will solve the whole problem of participation. Yeah.
Okay, we have 5 more minutes, so we can even chat about it later. But so 2 options for these 5 minutes. Either Toufic, if you have any question for Catherine and Raphaël, you can ask it. Otherwise, I would like to suggest Catherine and Raphaël to just like brainstorm 2-3 objectives or like very targeted point to address. So Toufic, you have the hand on it. So decide whatever's best for you.
I would think just as Raphaël said, we need to narrow down the target audience. So maybe this is what we could discuss in order to set the user type and the reasons of why this would be the better user type to choose against the other types.
All right, what do you have in mind?
Well, I'm hesitant about about which type to choose, but it could be either like as well as Thomas already said, like once the game will be ready, it will be promoted as a game, so there will be not full control over the target audience. So I'm thinking, what could be having the general population playing? What kind of learning objectives around vaccination are important to learn, given that in one part it could like change the beliefs of those who are ignorant or they don't know about vaccination and they need advice, for example, or they need to acquire some knowledge in order to take a decision. And from another part, maybe that these can be common learning objectives for those who are for vaccination but don't really know why. Like if we can.
Okay, so what do you expect out of this game? Like to go back to what Catherine was saying, is what are the outcomes? Like once people play the game, what do they leave with? Like, do they leave with an increased knowledge? Do they leave with a behavior change? Do they leave with something else?
I'd say like acquire more knowledge about about vaccination, and more specifically maybe the reasons, like information that leads them to understand the reasons behind the importance of getting vaccines and or the risks of avoiding it or avoiding it to one's children, for example.
Okay. Catherine, do you want to react on this?
So to me, like, I think it's a nice goal to have it be about the importance of vaccination and the risk of not vaccinating yourself or your children. To me, there's like a second piece, which is, do you just want to talk about directly the importance of vaccination? Like, do you want to talk about like what is the mortality rate of all of these different childhood diseases, what's the risk of getting them, and things like that? Or do you also want to specifically address the arguments that are used in vaccine hesitant communities, which is kind of a separate issue? So like, do you want to explain the interplay of like public responsibility with personal medical choice and informed consent? Do you want to specifically talk about whether these arguments that vaccination causes autism or contains neurodegenerative substances and neurotoxins, do those have scientific founding? Do you want to talk about like whether it is a financial ploy from the pharmaceutical companies, which are some of the main arguments that are used? Do you want to, in addition to just giving like, well, the risk of getting measles, it has a reproduction number of 15. If you get measles, 1 in 1,000 children in France will die, 1 in 500 in the United States will die, 1 in 1,000 will develop neuroencephalitis and go deaf. Like, do you want both of those things or just one of them?
Well, maybe starting with the first part of the learning objectives would be better, and then later, given that the other ones are more of a controversial learning outcomes, like not only why yes, but why, like why not avoiding. So I'd say maybe the first type of learning objectives would be a good set to start with.
Toufic, do you think it would be possible for you to design something that not only teach people things, but also inform you and researchers and everyone on people's beliefs? Maybe like so that you could target easy, like you could design a more accurate game in the second phase to address the point that Catherine was stressing, because you don't make a decision just based on biomedical information.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So I think Catherine is stressing a very important point, but maybe it might be too complicated to I don't know, to design for now. But I don't know what. Is there a way of gathering information and then building on this to design a second phase?
Well, what I first thought of when Catherine gave the example of like controversial beliefs when it comes to vaccine hesitancy, the first thing that popped up in my mind is, instead of designing a collaborative escape game, it can be it can be an escape game with two teams that are working actually against one another in the game, where the game can be designed in a way where the team that is hesitant or that defends avoidance of vaccines will definitely lose by the end of the game. Given that there are arguments at both sides, it can be a communicative one. This is something a bit harder to design. So this is why I'd say it would be good to start with creating puzzles and enigmas around the declarative information and the facts around vaccination.
Okay, maybe a last comment. I don't know. Raphaël or Catherine.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you have, after the game, do you have a debrief with the participants?
Yes, that once the learning objectives are set, one of the subject experts would be present during the presentation of the game in order to describe and analyze and explain the reasons behind a certain solution to an enigma and why it was given to the players that way. It would be more of like a summary of the learning objectives by the end of the game.
Okay, because by experience, it's participants, they learn a lot at the end of the game when they are discussing all together, and you make them explicit their choices. Mm-hmm. They can exchange and they learn a lot about each other and why they are making such decision. So yes, it's good you have a debriefing after the game. It's important. I mean, it takes time and it's important.
Of course, it is part of like one of the most actually efficient parts of a game-based learning activity.
Yeah.
When it comes to learning outcomes, of course.
Okay.
Okay. Catherine, do you want to make any additional remark or?
No, I think it makes sense to have those types of objectives happen in multiple phases of first talking about this declarative information and then perhaps later talking about these more controversial issues. One thing I might encourage is, while I think some of the very difficult arguments around vaccine hesitancy, like issues of personal freedom and laws and religious freedom and whatnot, these are very, very difficult to get into. One thing that I think might be much easier to directly incorporate into a game about risks of vaccine preventable disease are just basic concepts of vaccine safety. So like discuss the risk of disease and then also directly address that vaccines are safe, because for a lot of parents, this is their primary concern, is they're just worried that the vaccine itself is unsafe. And that's a large portion of the vaccine hesitant community, and something I think you could probably directly incorporate into the game when talking about the relative risk of vaccination versus non-vaccination.
Okay. All right. Great, thank you very much. Toufic, do you want to have the last word?
Well, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to discuss the user type and learning objectives. Antoine and I needed people that are more knowledgeable about vaccination and how hard it is actually to tackle hesitancy. Now we have a clearer idea, and we hope to choose the declarative learning objectives soon, so we could embed them in the puzzles that are to be designed tomorrow, the fun part of the game. And then we'll try to integrate the both like discussions or outcomes in order to have a full escape game. And thanks again. We just need now to focus on the user type, given that it will be the general population. We just need to select the most important declarative information about vaccination to be integrated in the game. I'm sure the list is pretty long, but we have to select and choose the most relevant and the most important ones.
All right. So yeah, as far as we're concerned, we're going to do our best to provide you with as much information as possible, and also link you to people who could really help you with that. But I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. It's really a pleasure. I have personally learned many stuff, so even holding this event is great. Yeah, I look forward to hearing back from you all soon. Looking forward to see how it goes tomorrow, and when do we meet for the next Open JOGL, Laura?
It will be online. I will send you. It's in 2 weeks, but I can't. I don't have the date right now.
All right. You know where we are. We're based at the Cree, so if anyone wants to grab a coffee, please feel free. We have an amazing coffee machine. All right.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.